Welcome to the My Citizen Agency channel. After applying for EU citizenship, there may be months of silence. No letters, no calls, just waiting. What is actually happening with your case within government agencies, and how does the process differ for naturalization, investment, and repatriation? That's what we'll be talking about today. Before moving on to the differences between naturalization, investment, and repatriation, it is important to understand the general foundation, how any application for citizenship in the European Union countries is processed. There is no single law in the EU that defines the rules for all states. Each country has its own set of requirements, its own processing times, and its own internal procedures. However, the path your application takes after submission is structured in a similar way almost everywhere. It can be divided into 5 major stages: registration of the application and initial verification of the documents. As soon as your application is received by the government agency, it is recorded in a unified system. The case is assigned an individual number, under which the entire review process will take place. Next, the documents are formally verified. At this stage, employees do not examine the content of your biography or the grounds for citizenship. Their task is to ensure that you have submitted a complete set of documents, drawn up in accordance with the rules of the specific state. They usually check whether the forms and questionnaires have been filled out correctly, whether there are notarized translations into the language of the country, whether documents with an apostille or consular legalization have been attached, whether the state fees have been paid. If something is missing, the file may either be left pending until the deficiencies are corrected, or an official request for additional information may be sent. Identity and security check. Once the application is deemed complete, one of the most important stages begins: the verification of your profile. Government agencies check data against domestic and international databases for criminal convictions, administrative violations, entry bans, migration violations in EU countries or beyond, and involvement in activities that pose a security risk. For applicants to investment programs, this stage is particularly detailed. An in-depth check is carried out on the origin of capital, financial flows, sources of income, and in some countries, even reputational due diligence through external agencies. Assessment of compliance with the conditions of a specific program. Once your identity and trustworthiness have been confirmed, the immigration authority will assess whether you actually meet the requirements of the program for which you are applying. Here, the interpretation depends on the basis: naturalization. The length of legal residence, compliance with breaks, stable income, tax payments, and integration into society are verified. Language exams or tests on the basics of the constitution and culture are often included. Investment route. The fact of investment in accordance with the program requirements, the validity of the residence permit, compliance with the conditions for maintaining investments, and the legality of the sources of funds are confirmed. Repatriation. The main focus is on documentary evidence of origin. The chain of kinship, compliance with program criteria, and the authenticity of archival documents are examined. Request for additional documents, interviews, and exams. If the immigration authority sees a need to clarify certain details, it will send a request for additional documents. This is a normal part of the process and not a sign of a problem. Depending on the specific country, you may be invited to attend an interview, take a language test, confirm your actual place of residence, provide archival documents, or clarifying information. It is important for the applicant to meet the deadlines. A late response can significantly delay the process and even lead to the termination of consideration. Decision, oath, and registration of citizenship status. Once all checks have been completed, a final decision is made. If it is positive, most European countries require you to take an oath of allegiance to the state. After taking the oath, you will receive an official certificate or certificate of citizenship. The next step is registration in the national registers and the issuance of citizenship documents, an internal ID card and a foreign passport. From this moment on, you officially become a citizen of the country and acquire all the rights associated with it, including freedom of movement, residence, and work in EU countries. This is the general structure that almost every application goes through. Next, it is important to understand how exactly it is applied in practice for different reasons. And this is where the real differences come in. Now let's look at the 3 main paths. Naturalization. investment programs, and repatriation, and see what features await applicants in each case. Naturalization is the most common way to obtain citizenship in European Union countries. You live in the country on the basis of a residence permit or permanent residence, integrate, comply with local laws, and after a set period of time, usually 5 to 10 years depending on the country, you become eligible to apply for citizenship. But the application itself is only the beginning. Let's take a step-by-step look at what happens to your case after you submit your documents to the immigration authorities. Step 1. Formal review of the dossier. This is the very first filter that every application goes through. It is technical but extremely important. Employees check. All forms are filled out correctly. Signatures and dates are in the right places. The package of documents is complete. Notarized translations are done right. All fee payment receipts are there. Photos, references, and certificates meet the latest requirements. The absence of one small detail can lead to the case being left unresolved or returned for correction, and the deadlines being pushed back by weeks or months. In some countries, the formal check is quick, while in others it takes a considerable amount of time because the file is double-checked by several employees. Step 2. Verification of residence and integration. At this stage, it is considered whether you actually meet the key condition for naturalization stable residence in the country. Usually the following are analyzed: the actual number of years spent in the country, the number and duration of trips abroad, whether there were any breaks in status or whether the residence permit expired, whether taxes were paid on time, whether you complied with migration rules. This is also where integration is most often assessed. In different countries, this may include a language proficiency exam, a test on the basics of history, culture, and constitutional structure, an interview where an employee assesses your real connection to the country, residence, work, family, intentions, and degree of adaptation. If anything raises questions, they may request additional evidence, such as a rental agreement, employer reference, tax returns, or records of language course attendance. Step 3. Reliability check. After confirmation of residence and integration, one of the most sensitive stages begins. Assessment of law-abidingness. Migration and law enforcement agencies check the presence or absence of criminal records. Administrative fines and violations. Information about investigations or serious offenses. Data from international and European databases, for example, SIS. Possible risks to public safety. This is a standard procedure that every applicant goes through, even those with an ideal background. Minor administrative fines are usually not decisive, but criminal convictions or serious violations can lead to rejection or additional checks. Step 4. Decision and oath. Once all checks have been completed, the case is referred for a decision. If the decision is positive, the state will notify you officially, either in writing or via an electronic system. In many countries, the next step is the oath. This is a formal procedure that confirms your agreement to obey the laws of the state and respect its values. It can take place in the municipality, in the immigration department, in the town hall, individually or in a group ceremony. In some countries, you are considered a citizen from the moment you take the oath. In others, it is from the date of the decision. These details are always specified in national legislation. After taking the oath, you will be issued a certificate or naturalization act, an official document confirming your new status. Step 5. Passport and registration. Once you have received your naturalization certificate, the final stage begins, obtaining your citizenship documents. This usually includes registering with the National Registry of Citizens, obtaining an internal identity card, ID card, obtaining a foreign passport. These procedures are carried out at the local police station, passport office, or municipality. The time frames vary from country to country. In some, passports are issued in a few days, in others, in a few weeks. It can take years or even longer from the time you submit your application to the time a decision is made, especially if the immigration authorities are busy or additional verification is required. This is normal practice. The main thing is to carefully monitor your requests, submit documents on time, and, if necessary, check the status of your case through official channels. Now let's talk separately about investment immigration. It is important to understand that in Europe, the concept of citizenship in exchange for investment is no longer standard practice. Most programs have been closed or revised following criticism at the European Commission level and decisions by European courts. Today, the main format is an investment residence permit. You invest capital in the country's economy, obtain resident status, live there for several years, comply with the program conditions, and only then can you proceed to naturalization under the general rules. But what happens after you submit your application under the investment route? Step 1. Confirmation of investment and source of funds. Your application will only be considered after you have provided evidence that the investment has actually been made. The state usually checks proof of investment, purchase of real estate, participation in funds, investment in business, job creation, or other economic investments provided for by the program. Legality of the origin of funds. Countries pay particular attention to the transparency of capital, income, tax returns, bank statements, corporate documents, cleanliness of financial flows. Checks are carried out for suspicious transactions, high-risk offshore structures, and inconsistencies in the movement of funds. This is why investment cases are often accompanied by an extended financial check, which involves comprehensive due diligence, both state and, in some cases, independent external checks. This stage can take a considerable amount of time, especially if the state authorities request additional justification or confirmation of the origin of the capital. Step 2. Decision on a residence permit or permanent residence. After completing the financial check, the migration authority decides whether to grant you investor resident status. This may be a temporary residence permit, a long-term residence permit, or permanent residence immediately, depending on the country and investment category. At this stage, it is important to understand a key point. You do not yet receive citizenship, but you become a resident. It is the period of residence in this status that counts towards the total period required for naturalization. In other words, investments give you faster entry into the country and the opportunity to live there legally, but they do not replace the path to citizenship. Step 3. Naturalization stage in the future. After several years of residence, depending on the country's legislation, you become eligible to apply for citizenship. At this point, your process completely transitions to the standard naturalization format. This means that the state will re-examine your actual residence, integration and connection to the state, trustworthiness, and documentary evidence. After all the checks, you will go through the same steps as regular applicants: decision, oath, naturalization certificate, receipt of passport and ID card. The key principle that every applicant should remember is that investment helps you obtain residency quickly, but does not automatically grant citizenship. You still obtain citizenship according to the rules of regular naturalization, with requirements for length of residence, integration, and good character. Now let's look at the third option, repatriation. This option is suitable for those who can document their origins, ethnic or territorial ties to a particular people, family membership in historical communities, or the citizenship of ancestors in the past. In many European countries, such procedures are formalized as simplified naturalization for descendants. This means that requirements for residence, language exams, or integration may not apply if origin is confirmed by appropriate documents. But it is important to remember that the process is not automatic. It involves a rigorous verification of documents and identity. So, what happens after you submit your application? Step 1. Verification of the chain of kinship. The first thing the government agency does is carefully compare the documents that should form a continuous chain between you and your ancestor. As a rule, they examine birth and marriage certificates for each generation, documents on name changes, often a key point, old passports, military IDs, metric records, archival documents, certificates from civil registry offices, church and municipal archives. The main task of the migration authority is to ensure that the connection is real and documented, rather than based on assumptions, oral accounts, or incomplete data. If there is a gap, contradiction, or missing document somewhere in the chain, the authority may request an explanation or ask for additional archival evidence. Sometimes it is necessary to make requests to archives in other countries, which is also common practice. Step 2. Assessment of eligibility for the repatriation program. Once kinship has been confirmed, the state checks whether the ancestor meets the requirements of a specific law or program. Usually, the following is analyzed: whether the ancestor had citizenship of the required country during a specific historical period, whether they belong to a specific ethnic group, whether they lived in a territory that historically or legally belongs to the applicant state. Each country establishes its own criteria. Some only consider direct ancestors, others consider all collateral relatives. Some consider ethnic affiliation important, while others consider only the legal citizenship of the ancestor. Because of this stage may require additional documents about the place of residence or citizenship of ancestors, as well as explanations if there are differences in the spelling of names or surnames in the documents. Step 3. Reliability check. Even if the applicant's origin is proven beyond doubt, they are still subject to the same checks as those undergoing naturalization or investment programs. The following are checked: criminal record, administrative violations, information in international databases, security risks, migration violations in other countries. This is part of the standard protocol. Repatriation does not mean automatic citizenship. Each candidate must meet the requirements of law-abidingness. Step 4. Decision and oath. If all stages are successfully completed, the migration authority will decide to grant you citizenship. In most countries, you will then be invited to take an oath, a ceremony at which you officially confirm your loyalty to the state. After taking the oath, a citizenship document, certificate, act confirmation will be issued. You will be entered into the National Register of Citizens. You will be able to apply for citizenship documents, internal ID, passport, and other identity documents. The procedure may vary depending on the country, but the sequence of steps for repatriation is roughly the same. Repatriation can indeed significantly shorten the path to obtaining EU citizenship, but this only works if your evidence is accurate, complete, and the archival documents fully confirm your origin. Let's summarize what is important to remember after submitting an application for EU citizenship. Tip 1. Keep all receipts. Receipts for sending documents, notifications of case registration, letters, and emails from government agencies. This will come in handy if you need to track the status or prove compliance with deadlines. Tip 2. Respond carefully to requests. If a government agency requests additional documents or calls you in for an interview, it is important to meet the deadlines and provide exactly what is specified in the request. Delays or incomplete responses can delay the review process. Tip 3. Do not violate immigration and criminal laws. Even after you submit your application, they'll keep gathering info on you. Serious violations during this time could lead to your application being denied. Tip 4. Figure out your path ahead of time. Naturalization, based on length of residence, and integration. Investment immigration. First a residence permit for investment, then the general rules for naturalization. Repatriation, a simplified path for descendants, but with strict document verification. Tip 5. Check the relevance of the rules. Programs change. Some are closed, others are reformed, especially in the field of investment. Before applying, it is important to check the official information and recent legal commentary. If you have already submitted your documents and are now just waiting for a decision, I hope this video has helped you understand what is happening with your case within the system and what steps still lie ahead. And if you are just planning to immigrate, leave a request for a free consultation via the link in the description. We will study your situation, draw up your personal immigration plan, and prepare a complete set of documents for successfully obtaining citizenship in one of the EU countries. We work individually, taking into account your goals, your lifestyle, and your situation. Thank you for watching this video. If you are interested in this topic, subscribe to our channel and feel free to ask questions in the comments. We regularly publish program reviews, answer frequently asked questions, and share important news about immigration law and life in the EU. Your journey to Europe begins with the first step. My Citizen Agency is there for you every step of the way.